In other words, he won't be too much like his predecessor in that regard. He will speak out if he feels President Trump is doing things that he dislikes, including unraveling his legacy. We'll read on that with former State Department press officer Morgan Ortagus. We've got Fox News contributor Lisa Boothe, and Democratic strategist Michael Tobman. Michael, what did you make of that? Obviously, it would fly in the face of what President Bush did, which was, I should stress, unusual. He didn't pipe up virtually at all through the 8 years of the Obama administration, and some Republicans faulted him for that. But what do you think of when and how a former President Obama should act?
Well, I will probably get in a lot of trouble with my colleagues, but I would say not at all. By custom and tradition, the outgoing president doesn't comment on the politics and transition and policies of the new president, but I believe President Obama and his cohort really felt that this election was a personal repudiation. I would also point out that there are some serious internal discussions within the Democratic Party. We see challenges to House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi and my former boss, Senator Schumer, getting his legs under him as Senate Democratic leader. I think there he's also trying to lead the way with his Democratic colleagues in terms of tone and message. So it's an internal conversation, but also really I think he's hurting. I think he's really stung, not only by the election results, but the language that's come afterwards.
Yeah, and I know he does not officially say to the public that it's the personal repudiation. He says, I think, Morgan, that he himself remains very popular, so he thinks that this is more the fault of a bad campaign or what have you. But what do you think of that posture that he's going to speak up? I mean, it is in the tradition of presidents to do so sparingly. Again, former President Bush didn't do it virtually at all. But what is the right posture to take?
I think it will backfire on him if he does speak up. I mean, ultimately, he would be undermining a current sitting president. And I think that there's a reason why people like George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush and President Reagan didn't speak up. It's because they're not just average American citizens. They're former presidents, and they need to give their president the space to make their case. I also think if you look at it politically, Neil, the 2018 Senate map is actually quite in favor of the Republicans. And there's sitting Democrats that have to defend seats in Florida and Montana and West Virginia and Missouri, where Democrat incumbents are there now. It's going to be tough for them because Trump won those states in 2016. So therefore, if they've got President Obama sniping at his heels and that backfires, they have to defend their seat and to defend actions that a president's taking that would not ultimately be popular with the American people. You know,
Lisa, he is still the most popular Democrat out there. That is the president. And it is tempting for him to marshal that popularity, to marshal support for programs he thinks and initiatives he thinks are going to be undone by a President Trump. So how does he do that, or should he not do it at all?
Well, he is personally popular, but you have to look that his policies have been rejected by historic margins. The Democratic Party holds the fewest state legislatures that they ever have in history. He has lost both the House and the Senate by historic margins under President Obama as well. And I think this past election was also a referendum on President Obama's policies. He was the one that said that his legacy was on the ballot, even though he was not. And I think it's fitting that President Obama is laying the groundwork for being a critic of President-elect Trump on foreign soil, because he was the one that took the unprecedented steps of criticizing Donald Trump as a candidate on foreign soil. And this election, make no mistake, this was a repudiation of President Obama. You even look internationally, and what did President Obama do during his first 100 days in office? He went on an apology tour, apologizing to 3 continents. Donald Trump ran an election on America First, which is a direct repudiation of the increased globalization we saw under President Obama. It's also a rejection of the issues that Donald Trump talked about of unwinding from President Obama, like Obamacare, like his immigration policies as well. So, yes, this is personal for President Obama. It was a repudiation of him
Michael,
as well.
There's also the added difference here, and it's a big one, I think, that the president is only moving a few blocks north, I guess. So he will still be in Washington, D.C. His youngest daughter will still be going to school. So he'll still be in the neighborhood, and there will be a temptation of the media, which loves him, and to pepper him with questions. What do you think? And he's going to say something. So by almost design, his location will prompt comments, right?
I think whether in Washington or in New York or in L.A. or Chicago, they'd find him and he would be able to opine and weigh in on these things. But I think there's also an important distinction to be made between opining on domestic policy involving U.S. citizens and discussing foreign affairs, which really the United States should be speaking only with one voice, whether or not the outgoing president agrees with it.
So it sounds like, Mike, you would be telling him to shut up.
I would parse that a little bit and say express your opinions locally and domestically and stay out of foreign affairs.
What do you think of that advice, Morgan?
No, I think that he should just take George W. Bush's advice and be quiet. There's plenty of charitable things that he can work on. There's plenty of things that he can do. I think this reflects, Neil, a lack of leadership and a very, very thin bench in the Democratic Party. I mean, they're looking to him because they've got nobody coming up that can lead, no one that's inspiring, just a 74-year-old socialist who turned back to being an independent.
You're referring to Bernie Sanders.
I am.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Guys, we'll see what happens. But again, I find it very difficult to think that he will pass up an opportunity to say something. As I said, he's in the neighborhood.